Hello and welcome to the Swim Brief. Guys, we've got an amazing show for you today. I promise this is going to be the best one we've ever done. I'm going to come right out of the gate. That's the promise I'm making to you. Okay. I am joined, as I am every week, by Dr. Joel Rawlings. Doctor.
Pretty far from doctor, but go ahead.
You're a doctor in my heart.
He's closer to Dr. McGillicuddy's than he is any kind of medical doctor.
That would be true. That I believe.
You are the peppermint schnapps of my life. Okay, Joel?
Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah.
And he did not die from COVID. He's good.
Nope.
He's grown a healthy beard. Yeah.
You got to.
He still has
You're
power.
in Texas. It's freezing down there.
I am. I got my hat on. I actually had to turn my heat on, but not too high because that stuff is expensive.
Right. And you don't want to break the power grid by jacking up that heat.
I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to be that guy. So no, I got really lucky. I got Rona light. So on my way to full recovery here. It's been an interesting week nonetheless.
But Eric, you were vaccinated, and we were all promised that.
And boosted.
We were all promised if you vaccinated, you would never get COVID. So
the nice thing is that there's a news outlet. I think it's like, the ISL on their New York website. You have all the information you need.
The New York Breakers. Yeah, that's where I get all my vaccination news. It's really a good resource.
I got to start doing that. I was just under the impression that the reason why I got these shots is so I wouldn't be on a ventilator and I could be on this invigorating podcast.
That's right. Uh-huh. You were thinking about going to the hospital, but then you realized you don't trust the medical system and you want to be here to record more episodes of the Swim Brief. Yeah.
And I would not get monoclonal antibodies after such an experience either, because science.
The science. Guys, in case you're not following, we got some stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about Simone Manuel popping up in Tennessee. We're all going to give our completely uneducated opinions on that because we like to do that. Then speaking of uneducated opinions, we're going to talk about the New York Breakers Twitter account. I'm going to take the temperature. I know where I stand, but I need to take the temperature on Eric's Michael Andrew fandom after another tough week in that regard. And then we're going to talk about the USA Swimming's new, and I have to laugh as I say it, new inclusion policy.
Yeah.
I told that to my wife too before we started recruiting. She was like, doesn't sound like an inclusion policy. I was like, yeah, it's sort of like how they changed from athlete protection to safe sport. You know what I mean? It's like athlete protection, it implied too heavily that athletes needed protecting from something. So we gotta dismiss that notion. So definitely don't want to name it an exclusion policy. This is an inclusion policy. That's sort of political doublespeak here. And then, who knows what else will come up in the course of this. So we're going to start with the appetizer, and that is Simone Manuel. This broke like right after we recorded the podcast. She was, flexing in the Tennessee gym in an Instagram photo. Many hundreds of people were sent aflutter by this news. Eric, what do you think? Simone Manuel, Tennessee.
I think it's a great move. I think whether it's permanent or temporary, it's certainly an excellent opportunity for her to train there. I mean, she has another pro out there in Erica Brown, her one real would-be training partner. And Katie Ledecky has moved to Florida to seemingly focus her efforts on the 8 and 15, just based on what we're seeing and hearing, and what there's been a lot of success for out there in Florida. And I alluded to in other conversations was that they've had this influx of new freshmen, which means not only is your teammate and training partner who is in the mid-20s and understands your life gone, now all of these new younger kids are in. So your whole entire world kind of shifts around you. And it just seems like it's a much better situation for her to be out in Knoxville with Erica Brown, with a coach that is prone to trying and doing things different and thinking
Mhm.
about things differently. And being in a part of country where maybe there's a little bit more ease and freedom to move about. If that's something that's important to her, I don't know. I'm
Is that
just
freedom with all
speculating.
caps in it? When you say freedom to move out, I mean
Yeah.
Yeah, but not.
Yeah, you have to
not
yell
O-
it.
but-
or
But
freedom.
not
Yeah.
OMUMB on the end of that one.
Now you have to
Okay.
yell it, and then you release an eagle into the wild as you're
Oh,
yelling.
Right.
That's what you
Yeah.
do in Tennessee. Yeah.
As you play Leonard Skinner. So no, yeah, I mean, long story short, I'm happy
Feel
for
like-
her. I'm hoping this is the change that she needs to get back onto things that she needs to be in order to be successful in 2024. I'm just trying to ignore sometimes there's this in my world, everybody, Joel is on the bottom of my screen, and sometimes there's mindless dribble that pours out of his face in the midst of a thought. Sometimes you just have to ignore it to move on. You do it for
Yeah.
the fans.
I understand.
I think it's a great move. I'm going to follow it up. I
Sure.
think we're 2 for 2 positivity here. I feel like, look, if you're in Simone's position, which to me is she had a hard year last year. She, by her own admission, was feeling really burned out, overtrained, all that jazz. Okay. In my world, there's really 3 places you can go if you're at her level of swimming, and that is the situation you're in. One of them is Cal. I think Terry McKeever knocks it out of the park in situations like that on a yearly basis. But I can understand that if you're in Palo Alto, it's like too much.
You don't go to Cal.
Yeah, you don't go to Cal. So that option's out. Okay.
Right.
My second option would be to go train with Dave Salo, let him pull out every single trick he's got in the bag, to sort of keep swimming fresh and interesting for you, and get the training to some sort of level where, you're happy again swimming. And my third option would be Tennessee. I think it's, again, as Eric points, a place where, in a similar way to Salo, maybe the content of the training is not that similar, but there's a freshness to what's happening that I think when you're in that position that Simone is in, can sustain you, perhaps sustain you through just the 2.5 years she's got to sustain to get through in another Olympic cycle and still be, competing at a really high level. So in that context, I think it's a really good move. How about you, Joel?
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I think this is a great place to go. And when we always say like burnout and overtraining, it kind of falls into this, giant globule that all coaches like, well, but no one actually knows what that is. Is it a 100% physiological? Is it mental? What did she need to get away from, and what does she need to break from? And having a new scenery, new training dynamics, new training partners, might breathe some life into it. And boy, there ain't no money like SEC money. So they have nice facilities, they got nice everything. I think it's a great place. And like Eric was saying, training with Erica Brown, again, it seems like a nice place to go. And if you're going to try something new, again, it seems like, the ceiling seems pretty high there, and the floor isn't that far down. So, I mean, I think it's just a lot of positives for being there. Plus,
this could be,
it's a college town. It's pretty cheap to live.
Yeah.
What the hell?
This could be really great for Erica Brown and USA Swimming's 4x1 on our free relay.
Sure.
Like if this has potential to have a huge effect on the totality of this team, and so I had just thought of that now. It's like, wow, this could be.
Yeah,
massive.
I think Matt Kredish does a great job with what he's doing, especially like on the women's side. They do really good work.
Yeah. And it's a nice environment, all that good stuff. All right. Shifting gears to a less of a feel-good topic. We have, so let me back up and as Eric rubs his fingers together, let me back up and sort of give credit, because we're often critical of SwimSwam. I want to give credit to Braden Keith of SwimSwam for essentially putting Tina Andrew on blast with an article he wrote on SwimSwam pointing out that Tina Andrew was using the New York Breakers Twitter account to, I don't even want to say, you know what term I don't like? COVID-19 misinformation. That's like it's lies. She's lying to people. She's got a big platform and she's lying to people about something that could cost them their lives. That's what she's doing.
I think well, you got the George Costanza effect, so where it's like, it's only a lie if you believe it's a lie. It's like, as long as you don't believe it's a lie, it's not a lie.
Right.
You can lie detector her. I'm sure she believes everything she's saying.
Right. And I did, after reading the article from Braden, I did get and actually look at the Twitter account, and it's full blown Robert Kennedy Jr., vaccine mandates are like the Holocaust level of rhetoric. So it does feel like it is an escalation from, we talked about Michael Andrews' positions on this podcast. I did my own podcast on it where I talked about it. And I did feel like some of those were on the level of like, I guess everybody probably knows somebody in their life who has notions like Michael Andrew, and you go like, oh, he's a good person, just doesn't really know, the truth or what's going on. Tina Andrew is just apparently on a whole, I feel like she's another tier up in the crazy on this. And I have to say, not that anybody cares, but I'm totally out on Michael Andrew. When I did the 2 podcasts, I said like my Michael Andrew fandom has suffered a major injury, but it could come back. I don't think it can come back from this. I don't want to hear from him. I'm not cheering for him to succeed in swimming. For me at this point, the most helpful, wonderful thing would be if him and his family just went away from our sport and we never heard from them again. With that said, what do you think, Joel?
I think the low hanging fruit is obviously if you're going to laser for your scientific info, then you got to look at yourself. But
Right.
Again, the main issue here is obviously using the ISL in New York Breakers like Twitter feed like that. So one end where everyone's like, especially Braves, like ISL, they're doing CPR on it, just anything, trying to beat it. And meanwhile, they're hearing the hammering of coffin nails from Tina over there. Just bam, we're going to make sure that this thing is dead and gone.
Right.
Who's going to go swim there? Again, just how many sponsors you got to be like, we don't need this.
Right.
We're out. So again, I appreciate anyone's conviction. The part I don't appreciate is, again, when you're conviction enough that you're going to try to like use another platform like that, hijacking a platform to spread that kind of information. That's the issue, obviously. What they do in I like how they kind of be like, did the marketing term of team for family. And I think they should also go, instead of home, their compound. So whatever compound that they're held up in, it'd be great. Just go back there, just train, enjoy your days and wherever you are.
Right.
And just, we don't want to hear anymore. We're done. And again, it's unfortunate. It really is. But again, it's, homeschool, dude. You expected something different here? Yep. All right.
Hey.
I'm putting it on you guys. You guys for like trying to push this bandwagon up the hill for so long. Again, I appreciate the effort. Again, being a former Division III coach, I admire other people that just try to push the boulder up the hill, knowing that at any second it's going to roll back on you. Now it's coming crashing on you two guys.
Yeah, I've been flattened by it. Yeah.
Tell me how you're going to go burn his jersey out in the back with the LeBron one when he left. Yeah, just go ahead, guys. Just go ahead. Keep telling how you're off the bandwagon. Take your ideological approach. Go ahead. Homeschool, dude. Homeschool.
I did see somebody burn. You reminded me of my college days. I did see somebody burn a jersey once, but I'm trying to remember what jersey it was. And I'm trying to remember if it was the year the Red Sox lost to the Yankees on that last minute Aaron Boone home run, or whether it was the following year when they actually won the World Series and we had a delirious celebration in
wondering-
Waterville, Maine.
I'm wondering if some marketing people are going to see this the wrong direction. They're going to see the spike in New York Breaker T-shirt sales
Right.
as people are buying them up to burn them, and they're like, "Hey, we're getting
Right.
a lot of hits on this Twitter
Right.
account. Nice
Right.
job. Way
We
to
got to get
go."
in on this.
Yeah, any publicity is good publicity.
As usual, the most jilted lover
Yes.
in our threesome is
Poor
Eric
Eric.
Wyken. Eric, tell us what's going on with you.
It's hard. It's hard being the optimist in this group and trying to give people the benefit of the doubt and that they're actually going to be like fully functioning human beings
Yeah.
with a bit of rational thought. And it's clear that Tina and company definitely aren't. I just don't see they're untouchable at this point. They're radioactive. There's just not enough support for someone like her and them and USA Swimming. And I'm sure there's been conversation with him about his mom's rhetoric and a lot of that happening, but I don't see a whole lot of options for them other than, like you said, just crawl back to whatever hole that you came out of and just, I guess, occasionally show up for a national level meet so you can keep collecting your USA Swimming national team dollars. But I guess you can go ahead and find some hardcore right-wing people to sponsor you.
I mean,
Sure.
they could switch to anti-democracy and get the My Pillow guy.
Yeah,
That's just
as long
one
as
way
he's
you
not
could
in
go.
jail, which
Right. Still,
Could be
as,
6 months,
as
could
far
be
as we
6
know,
years, we
not
don't
in
know.
jail. Yeah. So
but it's just, yeah, and I do agree with Braden. That entire article was really well put. It's an absolute mess, whether it's the ISL, whether it's them, just any idea that you have that the league had any bit of professionalism or that family had any idea how businesses run is completely thrown out the window, and you just kind of
Right.
lose faith in the entirety of it. I wonder how many athletes are going to pull an Eli Manning and refuse to swim for the New York Breakers. I just don't see it happening.
Sure.
Are they going to be able to compromise themselves and just swim there for the money that may or may not be paid to them? I just don't see it. I certainly, as an athlete in good conscience, could be like, no, I'll just go up to Toronto, thank you, and swim for them up there.
I think there's basically
The training
there's two
site.
different issues. Is kind of the idea of like what's going on with Team Michelangelo and what's going on with Team New York Breakers. And so obviously the hijacking of the Twitter account is probably the worst part. But I mean, I think a lot of times we kind of lump people in for being stupid, for being crazy, whatever. And it's like she was in the entertainment business. She knows exactly what's going to happen here.
right.
And so again, I admire the conviction. I really do. I honestly, and that's not sarcasm at all. I admire it because she knows that this is going to torpedo sponsorship agreements. This is going to like end so many different things and close a lot of doors. And so again, I admire the conviction. The big issue, and I'm not saying I'm not hopping on either direction. I'm just saying I admire that anyone that's convicted enough to take your whole family down like this is that's something. The big thing is, again, taking over the Breakers like Twitter page. Again, that's crushing a whole nother entity that's got other mouths to feed,
Yeah.
So that's the interesting part for me, at least.
And speaking of strong convictions, many people with strong convictions are cheering the news that USA Swimming has changed its athlete inclusion policy this past week. The headlines of which being that USA Swimming decided that they wanted 36 months, so 3 years, 3 full calendar years as a cutoff for testosterone suppression to 5 nanomoles per liter. Am I doing my units correct? So somebody will have to correct me on that.
Well, they will.
And then also that a panel in the spirit of Joel Rawlings' own suggestion on this podcast, they were listening and they said, we need a panel of 3 medical experts to determine whether or not the transitioning athlete has still has a competitive advantage from their pre-transition state. This effort, as far as I can tell, definitely got a big boost from Nancy Hogshead Makar, who I think I texted you guys a couple of weeks ago, was organizing an effort to get parents and swimmers on the Penn team and in the surrounding area throughout the swimming community to agitate for some sort of rule change prior to the end of the season. And she asked me to be a part of it as well. I said no, partly based or primarily based on the conviction that I share on this podcast, which was that I didn't think it was fair to change the rules of a sport within their competitive season. I think in my mind, once you've started the year with a certain rule set, you have to see it through, no matter how unfair you think the rule set is. And I think, like we talked about this before the podcast recorded, like it'd be sort of like starting the NFL playoffs and then changing the overtime rules, with the season on the line. Nobody would consider that a fair thing to do, no matter how dumb the overtime rules were. But here's where we are. And it appears that Leah Thomas's eligibility to compete is up in the air for the rest of the season. She didn't swim in her last meet. She has her conference championships here in, I think they're in like 12 days. Yeah, they're less than 2 weeks away. And then, of course, you have the NCAA championships, which she's qualified for at the end of the year. Eric, what's your reaction to this change by USA Swimming and everything else?
It's the communication of it, and maybe just not necessarily paying attention to everything that USA Swimming is doing. I would imagine that any kind of communication about changes in policies or movement in policy would have been communicated on our larger news sites for swimming, as far as swimming is concerned, with SwimSwam or USA Swimming, Swimming World Magazine and State of Swimming and things like that. But to finally see it, like, were you going to say something that was coming out? I'm kind of blown away that it's just all of a sudden it's like 6-page policy. Here it is. We just ratified it February 1st. Take it.
Yeah.
It's good that they're finally taking a position from the standpoint, and it's all on the surface seems to be based in rational thought and science. I don't know enough about science. I don't know enough about some of these things to really necessarily speak to it. I know the requirement, the threshold is half of what I think the IOC has for competition. So they're setting a standard that's even tighter, which if they're going to continue to hold that, you have to make the U.S. Olympic team on half of what the IOC makes at this point, or if they're, because right now they're not deferring to FINA under any reason. So they've either had conversation with FINA. FINA has told them they are going this direction. So they've had policy, kind of a draft written, and now they've just put in the language. The one thing that sticks out to me that wasn't in the detail of that policy as I read it was, so it's 36 months, it's consecutive 36 months, which means
Correct.
The minimum that athlete would have to be under that threshold is at least 3 years. So if there's a blip in the middle of that, something happens, does that 3-year window start over if it's that important? That was just something that I kind of thought of. The other thing that I noticed that wasn't in there, aside from the fact that you have to test 3 times a year, there was no frequency in testing. So I don't know the least bit about testosterone suppression or trying to break the rules. But it seems to me that without any kind of communication of a regular interval of actual tests through a 3-year period, is it just up to the panel of 3 to decide these tests weren't consistent enough across these calendar years, therefore you are not eligible? I guess I just, I don't know.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, it raises a whole series. There's so many questions. There's so many questions. Who's going to be on this panel of 3 experts? How are the experts going to be chosen? What are the credentials for the experts going to be? You bring up an interesting point on testing. Are the panel of experts going to weigh in before somebody messes with their endocrinology for 3 years straight? I mean, like, so that you don't have somebody that suppresses their testosterone for 3 years, gets to the end of it, and the panel goes, well, actually, we always thought you were going to have an advantage from your pre-transition
so
state.
It's an
So
application to go through the 3 years. And then what's the relevance of having a current or athlete that was 10-year experienced athlete or stuff like that? What's the relevance of the athlete on this panel? Because they have to have that person and they have to have that piece of the population to be a part of it. It's like, I don't see the point of an athlete making a scientific decision.
But this is why I don't think you should change the rules in the middle of the season, because they don't seem to be ready to implement this on any usable format in the middle of the season. But yet it will probably, I know there's some gray area that we tried to decipher before we were recording this on whether or not it would actually be used by the NCAA this year. But if it is, like, is there really a format for fairly adjudicating all of this? So you've just, like, in the effort to make things more fair, you've, like, opened up a whole new world of unfairness, in my opinion. Joel's been sitting on the sidelines for this whole conversation. So, and I think
I don't want to interrupt and be rude. I'm
yeah, no, it's good. That's why I saw your face.
Nice.
You were ready.
I'm thinking about a lot of different things, obviously, and the problem, obviously, when you get into any hot topic, with that is going to include, like, gender issues, religion, religious beliefs, whatever people kind of are bringing into this and unloading in the comment sections about this. I think when you get to that, then you just boil it down to, like, let's just take a rule, any rule, like you said, we're going to have it in place, and then we'll follow through to the end of the year at the very least, whether it's right or wrong. I'm not deciding which. I'm just saying it's like you got a rule in place, and now we're going to change it in the middle, and you're not 100% sure that this is definitely something worth correcting. Then again, I just wonder, is this a reaction to one athlete? Or is this actually something that's been thought out? Like Eric says, like, all of a sudden we unveiled 6 pages now. I was talking before the podcast even started, like, we all have that one kid, like, hey, when are we going to start working on starts? You're like, you're still on the team? I thought you quit week 2. I haven't seen you all season.
Coach, can we work on starts before the big meet? Like,
yeah. And so now same thing, NCAA conference coming up. So now all of a sudden all this stuff comes up. You're like, where was this at the start of the season? Again, and I just got a lot of questions. Why from 10 to 5? Why was that number selected? Again, it's like, I don't know enough about the science. Is there some sort of, like, this is what it is? And now you flip it on the other way. Let's say that you do go to 5. Would a transgender athlete that's now competing have the right to go, okay, I want all the women here tested as well. I want to know the testosterone levels for the women I'm competing against, because I don't think it's very fair that I'm, brought down to 5. And again, I don't know what 5 means. It could mean, you're still, hulking strong. I don't know. And I don't want to make light of it.
5 is well, and I mean, knowing a little bit about this, 5 is well in excess of
okay,
sort of what it would be typical for a female.
And then I'd like to know, like, again, like I said, if a transgender is, like, going to be at a 5, a transgender athlete, a female athlete. Again, I'm afraid to even talk about this because I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong terminology for this. And I don't mean any disrespect to anyone. I've got no hatred towards this. I just would want to know, it's like, would a transgender athlete be able to say, I would like to test every female here to see what their testosterone level is at? And again, why 36 months? Is there some sort of level? Again, it was like from 1 year and 10, now we're going to 36 months and 5. Why are these changes? Again, is it a reaction, or is it, this is something that's actually been thought through? And if it's not something that's really been like, this has been something we've been working on for years and years and years, and it finally came out, then why now? And with all, everyone's going to start to go, well, that's the USA swimming rule. And so we all seen what will happen next is NCAA, if Leah's allowed to swim, it's not so much the athletes I'd worry about, it's the parents in the stands. That's why I've opted out of youth sports in general, is the parents in the stands. And I can't see it getting better. And so there's just a lot of questions that go with this. Why now? Why these levels? Again, what are you trying to do when you're saying inclusion? And all I see is the exclusion. Where's the inclusion?
A policy. I mean, I'll go farther than you on the 36 months. I think 36 months was purposely chosen to exclude Leah Thomas.
And
because it's
been
also widely reported that she was on suppression for 2 years.
Right.
So that way they can give themselves a window that's bigger than.
And also, if you think about it, it's like, okay, so now you're going to start to go this route. A lot of times it's like, and this is going to start coming out again when someone is 18 or older. So now it's going to kind of almost knock you out of NCAA if you wanted to compete in college, because now by your senior year, now you're able to compete. So you get kind of like that 1 year, and in the meanwhile, you're kind of in the limbo. Again, I just have a lot of questions about this, and you're going to get hate mail on this, but again, I just would
nobody.
Answer the question.
We don't have enough listeners to get hate mail. Joel.
Good point. Good point.
So don't worry
It's
about
gonna be
that.
a hate
Fair enough.
message. It's gonna be one message.
The hate message. Yeah.
I only got
But-
support from the last time.
Yeah.
Actually,
It's just
from a coach that has competed of women's swimming that has competed against Leah Thomas, who listened to our last podcast, who was supportive of what we had said and agreed with my sentiment that you should not change the rules in the middle of the season.
One last thing I'll throw out there. Here's a little gasoline. She was like, we're all worried again, like where this bathroom is. Where was that worry again when all these allegations of sexual misconduct for coaches were going on? We didn't have this uproar about the bathrooms then. There should have been. There's a lot of things out here, a lot of like the death threats that this coach and this person are getting. Where's the outrage about that? This is someone who just wants to swim. I've got more of an
competing
issue with
within
the
the
death
rules.
threats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be, I have a little more of an issue with those people, I guess. And maybe that's why my blinders are on them because of that. It's like,
I feel like there's, I feel like on the USA swimming side, just thinking about this is entirely speculation. I feel like there are unwritten criteria that we aren't seeing that they have in their pocket. Because I think about this 3 years of testosterone suppression. I feel like they have a threshold as to when that 3 years starts and when they'll actually accept an application. I think any male that is going to start this suppression after the age of 18 has no chance in hell in getting an exemption. I really don't.
I don't
because they have already gone through a majority of that growth. It's just not going to happen. So unless somebody starts transitioning by the time they're like 16, which is a hell of a thing
Probably
to undertake
earlier than that.
mentally.
even.
Right.
Yeah, even
Right.
and that 13, 14 age group that they put in there, it's like nobody in their right mind is going to be having a human being making the decision to transition at this point. Doesn't matter how certain they are of it. And I'm not
Right.
saying that it is necessarily that they're, going through a phase. It doesn't mean anything like that when I talk about it. It's just, it's such a huge undertaking to just start testosterone suppression during a time of your life when there's so many things going on in your head and in your body and in your world. I just don't see USA Swimming showing all of their cards with this policy, and anybody who makes this decision to transition after the age of 18 is simply not going to be able to compete at an elite level for USA Swimming.
Yeah. Which makes it an exclusion policy. Not an
Well,
policy,
in
as
the
I
first
said
part
earlier.
too, what wasn't the first part kind of about basically you also can't demonstrate like a certain level
Yeah,
like
where you
proficiency.
sit in males, where you sit in the males rankings. Like if you're, it just seemed like that's that threshold is probably the same thing where it's like 500 something
I
in
think
short
that
course and 300 something in long course.
I again I'm I'm not the most optimistic guy, I guess, from what Chris is telling me. We'll work on this, but I'm just looking at that as well. If criteria 2 doesn't get you, we're going to get you with criteria 1. Because good luck. Like again, if you grew up in Montana, swimming's not really strong there. 24.5 is an elite level 50 freestyler on the dude side, and so now that person's excluded again. I don't know. I'm just thinking that one was set up to make sure that we don't have to get to another.
Yeah.
And if we did get to the other, then we can finish this off. But it is, I think Eric's got a great point there. Like, so at 14 years old, you're supposed to decide right then and there, you know what, I'm definitely, I'm going to go this route. And it's like, and so then at 18, 19, now you're petitioning and things. Again, you can call it inclusion, but it just doesn't seem like that to any of us.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all we got. If the podcast keeps on going past this point, it's because we recorded some bonus content. If it doesn't keep going, it's because we said something so stupid on that bonus content that we decided to put it in the great trash heap of history. But otherwise, thank you everybody for listening. And we will speak to you again next week.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, Eric, fill us in on Shane. What's the deal going down there in Austin? What's going on? I haven't read anything about this.
Give us our Shane Casas update. Come on, man.
Your Shane Casas update. All right. So clearly neither of you watched his podcast interview with.
That's correct.
With
That's
Coleman.
why we're
There's lots
asking
of
you.
things I haven't watched, especially some
Yeah.
We don't have all that time to watch that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Come on,
yeah,
man.
kids. Mouths to
It was
feed.
good. Like it was really good in terms of the content that he provided, the context of how things went, what was going through his mind leading up to the NCAAs, what happened at NCAAs, and then how that continued into trials, as far as his mindset and being complacent in certain respects. I think the mention of complacent and just the vague nature of it really covered the whole public intoxication thing, which
Did it really though?
I can't tell if I'm frustrated or not surprised that Hodges didn't touch that one with the 10-foot pole, because that doesn't really necessarily fit his happy-go-lucky style of content versus
Right.
You could certainly tell that Brett Hawk would have been like, what the hell are you doing 2
What
months
happened,
out
mate?
from trials? Yeah,
That's my horrible Brett
No,
Hawk
no,
impersonation.
yeah, as he points with that big gun, at the screen.
Right.
But he was
What do you
very
think? Because
open
back
about
when
that.
I was swimming, I remember I did. It was like,
You go,
how
"No,
they steer
Brett,
their
no."
ship.
We would scull beers right before races, man.
Ship's not on your. It's wrong
yeah.
direction.
So,
back to
you know,
Shane.
And him taking a break, him realized just wanting to change. The thing was like he was like just enamored with being able to swim for Eddie, and it wasn't even on his radar until he found out that Eddie was no longer going to retire. And he's like, I would feel remiss and have a lot of regret if I didn't try training for the greatest coach of all time. So that, according to him, that was really his motivation to move to Austin. What we saw publicly, he's a kid, missteps in how things went, but just in the timing of it all, the coaches taking him back, his teammates taking him back, them understanding, like there was a lot more conversation and communication behind closed doors that we are privy to. And obviously, why would there be? It's internal stuff, you deal with it. So they brought him back in, got super focused on making it to short course worlds and being relevant at short course worlds, not unlike Mr. Andrew.
Do you mean he actually trained for the meet?
Yeah.
Wow.
He went
What an idea.
for a bit, and he still wasn't happy with where he was physically or his results. Keep in mind, he had really great results in
Mhm.
according to him, never racing or being really in a short course speeders pool in his entire life.
Yeah.
So, and him just talking of being very candid about the kind of person he is, the kind of things that he wants to do. Like he's not about ISL at all. Like he doesn't like that lifestyle. He wants to stay at home. He wants to train, and he wants to be great long course. So it got me back closer on the Shane Casas train.
I knew
I'm
it.
a little gun shy with this. Can we give the Andrew family, can we give them some kind of like moniker or nickname, or is it just going to be the cult that shall remain nameless?
Andrew Cult. Andrew Cult.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just,
see, that's now you got to the important part, Eric, because I feel like I'm listening to my friend. You know, he's been 6 months sober, and he's telling you, he's like, I figured out I can just have like 1 or 2 drinks, and like it works. You know, it's fine. I feel pretty good, and I don't feel bad in the morning, and you know, like
I know
all the way
everyone that
back
has
in.
a problem says they don't have a problem, but I don't have a problem.
Yeah. I find that if it's red wine, I'm fine. Everything's fine. It's
antioxidants.
Yeah, it's good for you. In fact, I'm doing it for my health. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I hear on the other end of this.
Long
You know,
story short,
I
was
think
happy.
I remember the couple of the texts he sent out. I was like, he said you got to stack up, things like that. You're like, again, I'm the old crotchety guy now, where I'm just like, sometimes when people use certain phrases and things like that, or if it's the dude that has their hat on backwards and they're 50 years old, you're like, there's some sort of immature level where you're kind of like, you're always going to have in your head, like, okay, are we ready to move forward? You know,
Yeah, he's definitely still a kid.
Right. And again, not bashing. I mean, shoot, I'm still immature too, but again, I'm not trying to, tell anyone I'm going back to the Olympics. Yeah. Really.
It is.
But yeah,
it
is one of those things where when people throw those things out there, you always wonder a little bit about maturity level and actual commitment. And I haven't heard the interview yet, just a little bit.
No, you can tell he's a kid at heart. He's still just a young guy. I mean, it was, the reference to some of the words he was like saying some like a race that blows, whatever it is, like the kind of stuff you hear out of a teenage mouth.
But also,
again,
it's not the kind of words that you hear. Kind of one of the things I used to always talk about parents that are coming onto the club team is that you always get that Olympic bump. Was I always mentioned, like, listen to the Olympians and how they are interviewing, even though they're like right after a race, they're really pretty eloquent. You know, they do a really nice job. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand like that. Again, maybe trying to kind of looking too much for causation, correlation kind of thing. But it just seems like people that are kind of that disciplined, that focused, are able to kind of put themselves together and understand the message that they're going to get through and who they're talking to.
He's not ready to be at a Dressel level or a Nathan Adrian level. You're talking about who's polished, who's that fit and finish, and Ledecky is another one.
But also like, now it's like you're a pro, you're on your own. And that's the thing, you just say he's not polished, not finished, but now you're on your own. I mean, for 4 years of college, you got, or however many, like again, how many years of your transportation's arranged, your meals are always going to be there, the dishes are always going to be done because you're on that scholarship. Flights are arranged, rooming is arranged, hotel, all those things are arranged. And that becomes, again, part of the trouble of becoming a professional athlete in the sport of swimming is you now are going to do all of that and figure out your tax forms. Good luck on that.
Yeah. And
so, unless, of course, you got your team at the compound working with you. Yeah. Then you wonder, like, who's going to help? How's that going to get there? And I think that's probably ends up becoming kind of the agent, like an agent, athletic agent kind of thing, where they're the ones.
He doesn't have a manager,
but there's not enough money. Who's going to pay the manager?
I know.
I'm going to get 10% of your ISL.
Between his USA Swimming stipend and the 40 grand that he got from short course speeders, he's 90,000 in the last 4 months. Doesn't have any sponsorships. So there's really not a lot of money. And it's interesting that, Coleman brought that up. It's like ISL. It's like, I understand he's not a big fan of that format, but if he doesn't pick some of these meets to make money, he's not going to make money swimming twice a year.
No.
It's just not going to happen.
No.
What's he going to do? He's going to get on Twitch and stream gaming and make money that way when he's not recovering from training
Maybe.
or lifting weights or swimming. That's not to say that he can't.
Right,
It's
right.
just that at this point, like, you have to make your decision about how you're going to make money, because you can't survive. You can't live comfortably in Austin on 50,000 a year, even if you do a world championships every
It's awesome, dude.
6 months. You can't be an elite
Right,
level athlete
right.
and pay for the things that you need to pay for.
Yeah,
on
you're getting
50,000
beer
a
and
year.
pizza. You're not going to Whole Foods, right?
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's just not happening. So yeah,
I wonder if like just how the landscape has got to change so much right now with NIL. Like obviously SEC people like, hey, by the way, we've got a whole complex that we built for $4.5 million right behind us. It's going to help you all with NIL. The same thing where it's like, and we'll help you with if you want to go pro, kind of that transition, because that 2-3 year transition phase, I bet is pretty important.
yeah. Are
Having
they allowing
someone
to
there,
tap into that?
right? Like Caleb Dressel to kind of come back and go, listen, these are the mistakes I made. This is what you need to do. These are the meets you need to hit. And this is how you're going to make some money. And this is where you need to save your money at.
Yeah. Is that a position that needs to be a part of USA Swimming? Is that is it Lindsay Matengo?
You want to
right now?
add administrative bloat to USA Swimming, Eric? No,
Maybe not another person, but maybe it's like what is that position doing for 4 years? One of those positions gotta have downtime. I mean, I know they stripped a lot of people out of there, but you're at a point as an NGB where you need to provide that service. Is that service being provided right now? I don't know. I'm not a part of USA Swimming. I don't want to be a part of USA Swimming. But I think that's the biggest thing is what are they doing for their athletes? And if they are doing it,
Right.
let's communicate that. Is it coming down to the clubs? Like, we are going to provide this service, or is it just a matter of kicking the can down the road?
Right.
I don't know.
I
What
think
happened to
Chris had his usual. If you look at that, Chris's bathroom break is always this time. He's regular as clockwork.
That's right. For those of you
He's
who
a
have
high
gotten this
fiber
far
kinda
into the podcast, Chris has
Yeah.
got a deuce.
He's a high fiber,
Yeah. He texted us that he was leaving at 2.
Yeah,
He texted us
two is
that
code. We know
at
two is code.
2 Eastern
All right.
time. Chris has to dip out. He texted this at 2 minutes to 2 Eastern time that he had to
Yeah.
leave. So
All right.
we won't bore you anymore if you've gotten this far. Thanks for listening.
I didn't even make it this far.
Part
Yeah.
2. And tune in next time when we talk about more ridiculousness in swimming. Maybe USA Swimming will come out and talk about their international trials or the 18 and under cup that disappeared from the calendar.
All right. Later.